is the Two Marketeers Podcast, where hosts and marketing experts Patrick and Lindsay Waugh seek to uncover what makes brands so powerful in how they impact modern society and culture.
Two Marketeers. They've got a podcast. The Two Marketeers Podcast.
3. We're on. Hi, Lindsay.
Hi, good morning. Oh, you raised your hand.
That's hilarious.
Patrick, do you have a question? It's still there.
You gotta love Zoom.
Like when it does the birthday balloons, but someone's saying something that's like really upsetting and you're like, I'm so sorry.
Okay, people, this is video stuff, but we're not gonna cut it. My goodness. Hello, Lindsay Waugh, marketeer.
Hello, Patrick, marketeer. How are you today?
I'm well, and hello to all you other marketeers out there.
Yes.
It's gray. It's January. Stop acting surprised about it.
Yeah, we're feeling seasonal depression.
Oh.
I'm eating vitamin D like it's my job.
Well, I think maybe your wardrobe kind of is saying that too, wearing a hoodie. Do tell.
Fresh off the presses. First round Toronto Tempo merch. Couldn't be more proud to be wearing it. Check out that sweet logo. Woo!
Qu'est-ce que c'est le tempo, Lindsay?
Toronto Tempo is Canada's first WNBA team that just launched and is set to start playing in 2026.
Why are you wearing it, Lindsay? You don't strike me as a basketball fan.
I am now a basketball fan, as it turns out. My company, Tough Love, does all of the social media for the Toronto Tempo.
Nice.
And all of the planning around it. So we got to launch the brand. We've now got to launch the merch. Woo! It looks so slick.
Maybe we should have lowered your camera because Lindsay keeps getting up on her toes.
I know.
And pulling up.
Maybe I just need to stand back. See, look how cool it is. This is the Root City.
You need heels.
It's amazing. I know. And I actually have platform slippers on right now, so it's not helping me, but.
Of course you do.
If you're interested as well, follow along on our social channels and you'll see all the content we create. Exciting times.
We have to do an episode about COVID's impact on fashion. And I say that because you're wearing platform slippers.
That's right. But here we are.
It's amazing what happens during crisis, the things, the ideas, the things that change, the trends. Wasn't that good? Is it good, eh?
Nice transition.
Thank you. Today's episode is the first of 2 parts. We haven't done that yet this season. And it all stems from our whole theme for season 5, which is creativity in crisis, right?
That's right.
And early on, Lindsay and I vowed that, we're going to try and keep this as positive as possible. Look at the opportunity, not the threat. And I think when you think of that, this is a perfect example of the good thing about crisis is it forces us to be very innovative, and some would say creative. So Lindsay and I both gave ourselves homework. Let's go and each of us find the perfect sort of example of innovation or creativity during crisis. What are some wonderful things that have resulted when the world is in crisis?
Right.
So the thing about crisis is that it can be a catalyst for creativity and innovation, right? When we're challenged with things. And as far as humans, it is the opportunity to be creative and or innovative. Mm-hmm. What's important is to understand the difference between the two. And I found this great line from the World Economic Forum. How important is that? Ooh. In 2015, we'll add the link. And it says, creativity and innovation are not the same thing, but both are crucial to long-term success.
Interesting.
You need both.
Yes.
Creativity is coming up with new and useful ideas, right? It's about what's new. Mm-hmm. Innovation is the successful implementation of those ideas.
Oh, interesting. Because I was going to think of it the kind of the other way, where innovation is like the motivation and what comes from having to change, and the creativity is developing the solution in a way that's going to make it successful.
I don't think that's wrong. I think that's what I thought too. It requires creativity to be innovative.
Yeah.
It helped me kind of really pinpoint the example I want to talk about. And that is the QR code.
Yes.
Is it creative or is it innovative?
When Sean told me about this, I was so excited because in true Mean Girls fashion, I've been trying to make QR codes happen for 15 years. Literally, since we didn't call them QR, we called them scannable codes in the beginning. Scannable codes. I was like, in 2010, I put together a webinar, like a lunch and learn at an agency I was at, to be like, scannable codes are the future.
It's
like,
the future.
It's the future. Like, get on board. We're all going. Come on. Like, scannable codes are going to be the thing. And they didn't latch on, and then they became QR codes, and I kept peddling my wares and they didn't latch on, and the consumer behavior just didn't adopt, and I snuck them into every concept and presentation as possible, and here we are. So back over to you.
So if I may unpack that,
Please.
I look at you were being creative, okay? Yet but it couldn't implement because it wasn't implemented yet as an innovation. And what I mean by that is when you look at the history of QR codes, started with the barcode, UPC, that sort of thing, and it started in manufacturing. So I'm going to I've learned my new 2025. I don't care about where the facts came from. I'll add it. We'll put some notes in, but I'm not.
John's winging it.
Right? I'm winging it. QR codes happened because based on how retail worked and how they needed, when that came up way back in the 50s, I think, it was about being able to keep inventory. There was so much data as the demand grew for products. These manufacturers needed a more efficient way to inventory. And that was what the UPC code was. And then all of a sudden, there were UPC codes before you even could scan an item, before a cashier could scan an item. It was really on the supply chain side. What happened was the fact that it's scannable horizontally by vertical lines and the sort of footprint, the size of space it took, they ran out of data. It couldn't, there were only so many, what do they call that? Like the codes? Yeah, there were only so many codes.
They weren't like this long all of a sudden?
Yeah.
Just like,
exactly. So they ran out of space. That's a big problem with humans, eh? We run out of space. So essentially the QR code is an evolution of the UPC code or the barcode because it takes into account the vertical as well as the horizontal. So basic math is you've exponentially grown the possibilities of how many variations that you can have.
Right. That makes sense.
That's it. Okay. That's as technical as I'm going to get. Fast forward to when Lindsay, so it existed. And
yes.
Most humans, most of us as consumers didn't even know it existed. We didn't need to know. It was on the business side. Then all of a sudden in the 2010s, which is when Lindsay is referring to, it became this real super cool thing that all of a sudden, hey, this has other uses because the struggle is people are not, as much as we try and include the URL on every poster or every banner ad that we put on the internet, they're not going to go away and input 16 characters, no matter how pithy it is, to continue their experience. It's not convenient. It's just not how I do things. So great. That's the barrier. Now let's make it easy. All they have to do is scan and it will come up.
That's what I said every day for a very long time.
Except all you need is to download the app that allows you to scan. Simple as that.
That was an early on issue, definitely.
It was definitely a barrier to adoption.
Well, because then the instructions are like, instant access to this amazing experience. Now go to your app store, Google a weird QR code reader names app. Good luck trying to find, download. And you're standing at a concert and you're like, I don't want to do any of this. I'm like, but it's going to be great. I'm like yelling. And they're like, no, I don't want to do any of this. And so people there wasn't a big enough motivation to start doing the behavior.
We weren't bridging the gap or the barrier. We were just doing it another way. But I mean, I don't know about you, but I remember we sat in my office and we'd be like, oh my God, we'll do this as a QR code. It was really cool. And let's be clear, Lindsay did sell it quite well. It just didn't perform necessarily. And I remember thinking, well, it just became, oh my God, innovation. We're just going to we're just going to use the QR code thing. And then we'd be like, okay, well, do you have a QR reader? I don't have a QR. Okay, well, hang on, I'll download it. Right? It was like, look at us.
Nightmare.
Oh, so that's where our history with it was. And then something interesting happened.
Mm-hmm.
A crisis. A crisis we all know as COVID. Apparently it's over. But what COVID did, and that is innovation, is it took that sort of, wow, this is such a great idea, but it's not innovative if you can't make it happen, right?
Yeah, until someone needs it.
Until we are in a state where it is the best solution to our problem. It wasn't solving anyone's problem. It was solving what we believed was our problem as the agency in trying to come up with cool ideas as digital experts to say, this is what is out there. This is what we should use, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it still happens, right? It's called AI.
Right.
I think we call it sell the shit out of it.
Yeah.
What a great story, because now it's here to stay until a crisis decides that there's another way that exists.
Yeah.
That makes it the right solution. So I guess, the whole point about it is, well, I mean, just to clarify, now, number one, this thing I hold in my hand, which is my lifeblood, which is my brand new iPhone, by the way.
Oh, welcome.
The 16, apparently. I mean, it's happened during COVID. My iOS camera knows when it sees a code.
Yeah. A lot of things had to happen to make it successful during that time. So it's funny because what I'm going to talk about around innovation in crisis is similar. There's not just one thing that happens. There's almost like multiple layers or phases or pieces of innovation, I feel like, that come together to make something successful. And the fact that your phone can scan it without an app is like another piece in technology that made QR codes be more usable by the general public. So crisis hits and people's behaviors adapt and change quicker than in any other time. So people are all of a sudden more open to using it because they have to. They have the innovation and technology to use it without an app. And then it's now part of your everyday daily routine. Like, imagine my surprise walking into a restaurant or any restaurant and now seeing QR codes everywhere instead of menus. And that's just one little example, but I'm like, you gotta be kidding me.
Right?
Now they're everywhere, and every mom and dad and grandma and grandpa are just scanning these codes with ease. So I think it's there's multiple elements of innovation that took place with the QR code and continue to take place to have made it now something that's widely usable.
I'd even say there were multiple challenges. There were multiple circumstances that forced change in how we behave as humans. And guess what? There's something that already exists.
Yeah. It's usually not one thing. It's not one little thing that's happened that now is oh, now this is the new way of doing it. Even with like innovation around AI and things specifically. Like there's so many different elements that take place for that to now be widely used that it's almost like this lasagna of innovation.
Oh my God. There it is. Like, Lindsay.
Well,
A lasagna. That's so gross.
well, could be my favorite lasagna, to be honest with you. And I love a good lasagna.
Yeah. Layers.
You know what I mean, though? Like the fact that your phone can just scan it, the fact that they are now everywhere, the fact that they are now providing critical value to people during a crisis. Like scanning it at a concert to get a free t-shirt was not a high value motivator to get people to scan. But like when you're forced into these moments of crisis and now your user behavior just adapts so quickly because you're having to change really quickly in a lot of different ways, that's kind of a perfect storm for it to now be widely adopted.
And I think, you know, to bring it back to what invention and innovation and creativity, and it's all a mess in my head because it really is. Invention, I believe, is fueled by creativity. Okay, you see an opportunity to do something different that's never been done before, and so you create something. Innovation is where that invention gets implemented and used and changes how things are.
Yeah, so would innovation be like that thing already existed and now we're going to change it to perform better? An invention is like it didn't exist.
Not wrong. The way I look at it is this.
I don't know.
When you're in it, I always go back to the Apollo 13 vacuum 24 hours or whatever room, is when shit is hitting the fan and there's no time to waste, you don't do something new, don't invent something, innovate and change the function or adapt the function of something that already exists.
Yeah. If you see a massive pain point, it's also like you can merely innovate against the pain point versus create something that's brand new. So like an example of that would be like Dollar Shave Club. Like there was a massive pain point around the price of razors. So they innovated the model to be subscription and direct to consumer and blah, 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 to make it more affordable for people coming out of like financial crisis versus creating a cheaper way to shave your face. You know what I mean? Like different way to remove hair from your face. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. A different way to do the same thing. That's innovation. Creativity is a new way to do it.
Yes. Which would be invention?
Yes. I'm not sorry. This is my take. This is,
No, and it's interesting.
It's invention.
I think creativity is highly involved, obviously, in both processes of invention and innovation.
They're not separate. It's about recognizing what each of them is. Because Lindsay, you know me, and a mantra I live by, both personally and professionally, is if I have seen further than others, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants. Mm-hmm. And it probably comes from early on as a designer. I used to find it so hard, and I would waste so much time early on thinking what I had to do had to have never been done before.
Yeah. And
I remember early on, like having clients and showing them stuff, and there'd always be someone in the room goes like, "Oh, that's already been done before. That looks just like this logo," and it would just be like, "Oh, I failed. I didn't take the time to look at every logo in the world." You know what I mean? And then I realized
I 100% know what you mean.
My job as a designer is to solve problems, not be inventive, not do something new. And I guess it's just something I've always, and having made that sort of leap between creative director and strategist, it's important to understand a strategist's job is to find where something already behaves that way, where there's like, this is a perfect example of how you can solve that problem. And the only way you can do that is digging deep into what is causing the problem. Creativity is come up with an idea and wow me.
Yeah.
Per se.
That's the whole issue. So the reason why we tried so hard to make QR codes happen back then was the pressure to do something no one's ever done before. That's
correct.
So these ideas, and this is a big problem where your teams are under so much pressure to do something that's never done before. They bring forward ideas that may not be easily adopted based on behavior. Instead of thinking of the problem as what's the behavior and what currently exists and what are people open to doing?
Yeah.
And how do we design an experience around what they're open to doing versus trying to implement a new behavior that doesn't exist or isn't widely adopted, especially if you're trying to create a mass experience. So that was, in hindsight now, where that creativity went wrong, was that the behavior of the people wasn't taken enough into consideration to make the idea happen because we were so driven to do something that's never been done.
Whether it was explicit or implicit. Yeah, the great way to wrap this up is we didn't know the difference. We weren't wrong in thinking, but one is an external pressure, and it's not to do something that's never been done before. It's about do something they've never done before, not wow them, do something that's never been done before. And I think that when we have that better understanding, and I think businesses really need to understand this better so that they know where to invest in the people whose drive or motivation is to be innovative and the people whose drive and motivation are to be creative.
Well, I think it's a really big problem in the marketing and advertising industry, especially amongst agencies, in that we are pressured so much to do big, splashy, creative, amazing things that have never been done before. And I think that's why the partnership between creative and strategy is so critical, because strategy helps keep the creative ideas on track based on what's going to land with consumer behavior and drive business goals.
Absolutely. Looks like we're out of time. But guess what? Stay tuned for our next episode because it's Lindsay's turn to share her homework, or whatever it is she calls it. So, Marketeers, Lindsay, thanks for your time. Marketeers, we'll see you real soon. Thanks.
Thanks. Talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Two Marketeers Podcast. New episodes launch every 2 weeks.
Find the Two Marketeers Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or wherever you like to listen. And be sure to rate and subscribe.
Listen on our website, thetwomarketeers.ca, or you can ask Alexa to play the Two Marketeers Podcast.
Want to keep in touch? Follow the Two Marketeers on LinkedIn or at Two Marketeers on TikTok. We've always got something to share.
This podcast is over.